This is one of the few times where I actually hope that the remake is better than the original film. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you haven't shut off the video yet. Today we're going to talk about The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 1976. I don't think I had ever seen this film, and they're coming out with a remake here in a couple of months from Blumhouse Productions. It seems like they're making every freaking horror film that's being released recently, but I had to go back and watch this film, so I could compare it to the new one, and let's get into it a little bit. First of all, the film was directed by Charles B. Pierce, the same guy that directed The Legend of Boggy Creek, and I definitely remember that film. As soon as I heard the narration in this film, it's narrated by the same guy, kind of took me back a little bit. It opens up with the narrator telling us about this Texarkana area. It's 1946, and everybody's basically happy. It's a happy-go-lucky town, and then this phantom killer guy shows up, and he's basically stalking lovers while they're hanging out in Lover's Lane. It has such a wholesome feeling. Even when the lovers are there, they're just like hugging and stuff. It's kind of funny. You can tell it's definitely, 1976 when this movie was produced. And basically the story is kind of almost done like a docudrama where it has this voiceover narration, and it's kind of taken procedurally through it. I mean, we don't really learn much about the characters at all. The main character is played by Ben Johnson, and he plays this Texas Ranger who's actually based on a real person. This entire affair is actually based on a real killer, real events, and I guess the movie stays pretty true to what happened with the killer as far as things went. And when you get to the ending of the film, you'll definitely realize that, because to tell you the truth, the ending is not satisfying, but I'll get to that in a minute. Let's get into the things I liked about it. First of all, the Phantom Killer, he's cool. I mean, and what's weird about him as a slasher, he uses a gun on some of the kills, and he uses various other things. He's like a sadist, of course, and they even say that in the movie. And that's one of the cooler parts of the movie too, is they actually bring a psychiatrist in, and they're eating dinner with him, the cops, and he's talking, and they do this kind of cool thing in that scene. That's one of the better scenes. But yeah, he's your standard killer. He wears like a little white bag over his face, and he's reminiscent of the early Jason before he got the hockey mask, basically. I'm sure Jason maybe ripped this off a little bit, of course, because this came out way before Friday the 13th. And that's the whole thing about this movie. That's what makes it a rare specimen, worth watching at least once, even though I'm not going to give it a good rating, is the style. It's like a proto-slasher movie. It has all the elements of things you'd see later in the slasher films, him chasing a girl through the woods, and the girl in this one happens to be Marianne from Gilligan's Island, which I thought was pretty cool. He's wearing the bag over his head. He never talks. He uses various kill weapons. He's cool. Like I said, the Phantom Killer is cool, so I can see if you like the movie, if you like him. But there's a lot of bad stuff, and first of all, the worst thing, the most offensive thing about this movie, and is I really don't like comedy in my horror. And they put comedy in this horror movie, and it just kills the mood on this movie. Because it's very straightforward, the film, almost like a documentary, and then you have this goofy cop who's actually played by the director of the film, and he is just a fucking moron. The first scene, I actually rewinded, and I was like, was that supposed to be funny? And then, yes, it's supposed to be funny, and there's about 3 scenes, I think, where, he's like a goofball, and he's like the Barney Fife guy, and he pisses off Ben Johnson, who's like the tough-ass Texas Ranger. And it's stupid, and they keep editing these bad car driving scenes into it, some slow-mo, and it's like the same scene. They show the car, going twice, this exact same angle. I know it's a low-budget film, but it just agitated me. I mean, how bad of a driver was he really? And this is the other thing, there's no character development at all. I mean, the only thing we learn a little bit about is Ben Johnson, that he's a Texas Ranger. There's another guy who plays, I can't remember his name, but he's another famous character actor. He actually does a good job, but we learn nothing about him. All he is like a cop, one-dimensional. Ben Johnson, he's like the big boss cop guy, leading the investigation, the best investigator, kind of a hard-ass type guy. So he adds a little bit to the movie, but overall, nothing is resolved with the characters. There's no character arc really at all, except for maybe the comedic cop, which was really stupid. And that's the part that pissed me off. And then the ending. I mean, I could have lived with the ending on this film. I'm not going to ruin it for you. If something was resolved. At least if the characters would have discovered something. If, the character would have took a story arc or something. The final thing I wrote here was, overall, it just felt dull. There were some good scenes, definitely. And like I said, I like watching the rare specimen of sort of the early slasher film, which I thought was cool. And the Phantom Killer was cool, but everything else was just dull. I mean, we didn't learn anything about the Phantom Killer. We didn't learn anything about any of the cops, really. We didn't know anything about motivation, anything, and it just pissed me off. And I, to criticize myself, I think I'm just one of these people, maybe the movie's too old for me. Maybe, I am the guy I complain about on this channel that needs the modern movie ending. I guess maybe I am a little bit, because the ending on this movie pissed me off. I do like the way they shot the ending when the killer's running by the train. They have this one really cool shot. It's almost like in slow-mo. I like that. And I was getting kind of hyped up at the ending, but then it was just like, boom, and like I said, maybe it's just the 70s thing or whatever. I just think of the French Connection, which I like that ending. It seemed more acceptable. This ending, because you're interested in Gene Hackman's character. This, I wasn't interested really in any of the characters, and like I said, there was no arc with any of them. So that's why I'm going to give The Town That Dreaded Sundown only a 2 out of 5, because it's a specimen. You got to see it probably once, but you can skip it. There's no real need to go back unless you're doing maybe like a journey through film, kind of like I am. I can't really recommend it. It's dull, in my opinion. The only cool thing about it is the killer. So if you want to watch the whole thing for that, go ahead, but I'm sticking with my grade, and hopefully you guys are kind in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the original The Town That Dreaded Sundown down below. What do you think about the remake coming out? I have not watched the trailer because I'll just go watch the film. And I'll see you guys soon with another review.